Okay, in this video, we are going to look at structure and technical SEO. Now, excuse me if there's a little bit of in the continuity isn't great at the end of this. This was originally filmed as one video. We're going back for a second filming now. I think we're going to break it into two because this is probably the most technically dense and potentially maybe for a lot of you, probably not the most interesting video. We moved away a little bit from the flashy things like links and content, and we're going to look a little bit deeper at the foundational things, the structure and things that really make a difference when you're trying to set those other things, the content and stuff up for success, right? So it's very important that you get this, that you understand this, that you understand the whys at the very least, if not the hows and the how to implement, because what's going to happen is either you're going to implement this or have somebody implement this for you, and understanding some of those intricacies is important in making sure that you get it correct. If you don't get it correct, it's sort of like shooting yourself in the foot in that you may get success. You may finish the race, you may finish the marathon, but you're going to do it much slower, and you're going to have to overcome a lot of extra problems that potentially just wouldn't have been a thing if you understood this correctly in the beginning. So please bear with me. I'm going to try and run through this fast, but also keep it sort of, there's a lot of conceptual scenarios here, but I'm going to try and keep this as grounded as possible in what it looks like for you on a day-to-day basis. So let's jump in really fast. So coming up, what we're going to cover is website structure, internal linking, linking clusters, sitemap files, and robots.txt files. Now, you've probably heard of sitemaps, maybe even robots. You've probably heard of internal links or internal backlinks, some people call them, but you may not be aware, I guess, of all of the details around them. So first up is website structure and indexability. So structure is super important when you're building out your website, or even if you've already built your website, it's important to maybe just take another look at it and make sure that this is in line. So the reason it's important is because both users and Google rely on known structures to understand how to navigate a website and what belongs where, what they should be looking at. So having a logical structure and navigation, it's extremely important so that you're going to lead users to the buy, right? You're going to lead users to the content that they need to see, to be convinced to buy, to know you, to know your brand, etc. And it's important for Google because Google will go through and analyze that structure and use that structure as a basis of understanding your website. And it's much easier for Google to go through and understand the structure of the site than it is to understand all of the content and the links of the site. If you think logically about it, we'll go through an example in a minute. But say for me to go through and see your site and see how many pages you have and where those pages are, say, these are under / features, and you've got a number of features there, and this is under / blog. It's very easy for me to understand what parts of your website are what and what is where, right? And what may be important to me if I'm looking for content versus if I'm looking for a feature, right? Versus, say, reading everything on your site, looking at all the possible links that you have, and then understand how all that goes together. It's much faster for Google to go through that all and go, okay, we sort of get it. Now we're looking for the extra content, the extra external links to back up what we think we understand, right? So that structure is really important for them, as well as users to sort of, good people know that if you're looking for the blog, it's usually listed under blog or resources, or, various things like that, various different folders with that name, right? So the hierarchy really helps them to contextualize the content and the themes on the site, and helps them to connect those things together, especially when they start to look at how they're going to put you in their search results. So without the structure, without doing something like this, without having some form of logical, hierarchy and things, what happens is it's difficult for Google to decide what's important. It's difficult for users maybe sometimes to see how things are connected as well. So another example of that might be, say you have a particular section on your site. So maybe you have blog and you have features, but then you have another section where it's like this free resource that you have. So let's, for example, pretend, I've written an SEO guide, and it's this massive thing, which is, 150 pages. And we start with the guide to SEO, the overall guide to SEO. And it's this big page, which touches very lightly on everything that we've talked about in these videos. What you would expect then is that if you clicked into, say, website structure from that main page, it would be located structurally under / SEO guide, the page you started on, / structure, right? Because you've gone, hey, that's part of the SEO guide. If I then made it look like it was a separate page instead and put it / SEO structure or something like that, you would not be 100% sure, maybe at first glance, looking at the URL, maybe even sometimes looking at the beginning of that page, that it belongs underneath the thing that you're already reading, right? So we understand this intuitively when we browse the web, and maybe we don't really pay attention to it, but it is by design. It is for a reason, and this is that reason, right? So users and Google can get that, hey, this all belongs together. This is all important together. And we can sort of process the information that way. So here's an example of a website structure, right? And it's going to help your users in Google, as we've already discussed. And you can see here that an example of, I guess, conceptually what this looks like is this. Feature one of your SaaS may be, for example, email marketing, right? So you may have an email marketing software, or maybe a business marketing software, which includes email marketing. And in this email marketing thing, you are going to want to produce blog posts that are relevant to that scenario, right? So for example, let's say here that feature one is email marketing, blog post one is the introduction to email marketing, right? And blog post two could be guide to email marketing for, let's say, personal injury lawyers, right? Just as something off the top of my head. So blog post one is your introduction to email marketing. And if you're going to read that, maybe it's a 2,000-word blog post. Underneath that, blog post 8, might maybe be called, it might be something like how to write subject lines for email marketing, or the 10 best subject lines for email marketing. And that might make a lot of sense, right? Now, you can see here that in terms of the way that conceptually this should work, is that feature one is related to blog post 1 and 2 very directly at a high level. And blog posts A to D are related to feature one still, but at a more niche level. They're more, maybe they're more tactical. They're things that are more actionable versus a high level overview of what can be done, how it can be done, why it should be done, et cetera, right? So these are more, maybe it's a good way to, I guess, separate it, but it's not necessary in all instances. Excuse me while I have an extremely bad hair day. I feel so vain. But you can see how this goes, right? So by doing this, I guess, by linking things, or by thinking about a hierarchy and a structure, you should be thinking about, when you're trying to rank, say feature one is email marketing, you're trying to rank for email marketing, these supporting blog posts, you can be thinking conceptually that this is how that should be on the site later on. You should have this blog post 1, blog post A, blog post B, etc. And it all sort of funnels up. And then maybe sometimes, this funnels down as well. You could be linking to these blog posts on the particular landing page as well. So you're conceptually thinking of it like this. And that's the way that you sort of want Google to understand it later on too. You want Google to say, hey, we've got a feature here. Here's 2 really high level concepts that relate to that feature that we've got. And here are some very niche specific things that people might look for that also relate to that thing. And all this is really important to us, relating to that thing and showing Google we have this expertise in that thing, right? And we've touched on this already. We've talked about content and how that works and does it. This is just where that content lives on your site and what URLs that content is under, right? That's the difference in this scenario. So that structure, I guess, is then augmented by internal linking, right? So the structure conceptually that you want Google to see is this, right? You want Google to understand this whole thing is technically like a topical cluster. Email marketing, and then email marketing for lawyers, an introduction to email marketing. This conceptual cluster is a theme. It's something you want Google to understand we have expertise in, because to rank you, they need to understand that. But it's easier for them to understand that if you have this internal linking and the website structure to support it, right? Now you see internal linking here. We've got the next part of that. Excuse me a second. Hopefully that doesn't continue. All right. So what you can see here is that, like, conceptually, this website structure here makes sense in terms of like what should actually be included. And then you can see internal linking augments that. So the way it actually looks on your website, it's sort of the understanding of it is going to be something closer to this. You've got your homepage here, you've got feature pages 1 and 2, and then you've got your blog. And underneath your blog, you've got various blog posts, right? That's how it's going to look in terms of URL. Homepage website / features -1, website / blog, website / blog / actual blog post, right? So you can see how that's going to look, right? Now, the way to create what we looked at before is internal linking, right? You're going to structure these silos. Features are over here, blog is over here. All the blog documents are under blog. All the features are either their own top level page. Generally, it's just a top level page and you don't have anything underneath them. If you do, as long as it silos the same way, right? Conceptually, in that same theme. So you can see how those are two silos left and right. And what you're going to do with internal linking to augment the structure is you're going to create this basically just a link. It's a tie back to that thing. So blog post 1 and 2, if we were going to talk about, say, landing pages, the example we'll look at in a minute. Landing pages, you might talk underneath the landing pages about, how to market your business. Landing page is important to marketing your business. What you're going to do then is link back to feature 1, which is a landing page builder, right? That's a feature that you have in your business marketing software or whatever you do. Now, what you're going to have here, you're going to see sometimes is you can see here that feature 1 has an orange and a red line, right? So the orange line goes from blog post 1 to feature 1, and the red line goes from blog post 2 and then connects with the orange line to go to feature 1 as well. So those two blog posts theoretically then are conceptually relevant to feature 1, but you can see that feature 2 only has that one green line to blog post 1 and nothing to blog post 2, and that's okay. Not every blog post has to link to every feature. What you're going to do is say, hey, feature 1 is relatable to these two posts. Feature 2 isn't. It's just relatable to this post. That's going to happen over time, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to keep creating more content and linking that all together and creating this big thematic cluster that Google understands. And that's how it should work over time. So using MailChimp as an example, you can see that here's what the previous concept looks like if we apply it to an actual website. So you can see that MailChimp's homepage has these two landing pages on the left. It has landing pages and postcards, right? And then you see on the right there, you have resources, and resources is technically their blog content, right? So under resources, we have two posts. We have how to market your business and marketing automation. Now, how to market your business and marketing automation are both more relatable to landing pages, right? You're going to have landing pages for both of those scenarios. You're going to talk about how to market your business. Coming up, how to market your business online is going to be important. And one of the things you need to market your business online is a landing page, because you need to have a page to receive the visitors. Makes perfect sense. Marketing automation is the same. If you're going to automate marketing, potentially, let's say Facebook ads or something to that effect, you're going to have links back to the landing page, because you're still going to give them an offer. The landing you're trying to sell, the marketing automation is to sell something, right? So it's landing back there. Postcards, on the other hand, might be something that doesn't scale as well. So in terms of marketing automation, you're not going to link to, say, postcards from the automation side, but you will link it from how to market your business as a non-scalable strategy that gets you attention, that gets you leads, that allows you to open a conversation with potential prospects. So conceptually, you can see how these things are relevant, right? And how this sort of creates that cluster that we looked at a few slides ago. There's this cluster, right? So you can see Google's going to understand all this. Say the feature 1 is landing pages, and we've got those two blog posts we were talking about, and we can have even more niche blog posts down the line about those other things, which I've forgotten: how to market your business and marketing automation, right? Landing pages, no matter how deep you probably get into both those two things here, are going to be relevant in that scenario, right? Somewhere. So that makes a ton of sense. So you can see here that this structure, this topical cluster here, this topical cluster here is actually going to look like this on your site, but Google's going to understand it this way. That's what they're going to see when they finish crawling and looking at all your content and everything else. Cool. So let's take a quick look before we move on to sitemaps and things. Take a quick look at MailChimp. So conceptually, you've seen that, you've seen the diagrams. Here's what it actually looks like on a website, and it's boring, and you've seen it everywhere before, right? This is their landing page for landing pages / features landing pages. You can see here. You can see create must-click destinations, landing page creator, right? That's their feature. Now, I went through and did a little bit of a look around, and I can see here that how to market your business. You can see if I go all the way to the top here, how to market your business, a small business growth guide. It's an in-depth bit of content that we can see here, going into things like identifying a USP, having a brand identity. You know, we start to talk about search, you know, optimizing your content. I don't think they particularly say SEO, but it's basically that. And you can see here that this here, in this particular paragraph here, create a landing page here. In the bottom left corner, you see create, you know, / features / landing page. So open that page. Same page as we've got over here as we went through before, right? So they're creating that internal link to this particular features page. And that's what the content is there for. I mean, not just to pull that, it's there to help people, but obviously you're trying to help people who might have an interest in the thing that you provide. So MailChimp, here we go. So here we've got a marketing automation tool blog, what their free marketing automation tools are. And if I look at that and I go to landing pages, you can see there's a lot of mentions of landing pages here, 8 mentions of landing pages in different scenarios. And if you can come down here, you see MailChimp's free plan. They have advanced marketing tools, and they can give you an edge. And here is the link to landing pages. Well, you don't see a link to here is postcards, right? So conceptually, what I showed you is postcards would link from this blog post. It doesn't, unfortunately, but it makes sense, right? So you would have then this postcard page is their features page. And potentially that they could be doing here is adding postcards. Here we go. So you can even automate postcards with MailChimp. So what you might be doing then is linking this here. Now, my theory is that they haven't particularly done this because it's not something that Google understands at this point, but it is an option that they could have done. You can see that this internal linking is the same thing you've seen, though, on every other website you've ever visited. You've probably done it on yours and just not realized maybe that, you know, it's a valid SEO strategy that should be applied to pretty much every blog. It's a valid SEO thing that should be applied to pretty much every page where it makes sense to do so. You shouldn't be jamming this in, but you should definitely be looking for those angles when you're talking about these things. And if you're talking about these things from a position of expertise, of authority, it's not going to be hard for you to be able to talk about this, provide some guidance, and then make that internal link. It's really actually quite simple. So in terms of internal linking, you see that we've just seen this in real life, in actual application, right? And I know that you're all doing this pretty much. If you've got a site up now, I'm positive that you're doing this to some fashion, right? So, but the reason for it, how that works conceptually, is to create that, right? That's what you're trying to create. A dense topic cluster, hierarchical, got it in the end. That creates this sort of, this easily to understand thematic scenario, right? And it doesn't mean you'll rank immediately for all the keywords you want to rank for because you've done this. But what it is going to mean is the more of this you create, the more high quality it is, the more link it all has together. All of that starts to roll into this big snowball of getting rankings, being able to post. Maybe these first couple wouldn't work really well when you posted. Maybe they wouldn't rank immediately. But once you get on this roll of website content, creating these thematic clusters, making sure the structure is good, you've got internal linking, you'll find that it's easy for you to reach even the bottom of page 1 with a strong website if you're posting about these things, because you've already created this trust in Google and they understand this over time. So that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to do it so Google can understand and index it all. So indexing being obviously them including it in their search results. That's what an index, that's what indexability is about. Do they have the ability to index you, which is very important in a minute in robots. And you'll be looking at all these things and making these assessments and saying, well, you know, have we created that topical thematic cluster? You know, is it easy for users and to understand? Do we have these internal links so Google can link those things together, etc. So moving on. So that's structure and internal linking, right? That was a lot. So let's move on to the sitemap file. Now, a sitemap file is essentially just a list of all the URLs on your website that you want Google to be able to see and crawl. It's a simple thing to do. It's generally structured as a .xml file, basically like a spreadsheet, and it's just uploaded in your main subfolder. So you'll find is that almost any website you go to, it will have a / sitemap.xml file. And that is to allow Google to go to that and say, hey, these are all our pages. If you haven't found them by internal links, they're all here. You can find them and crawl them. And depending on particular things that you might put on every particular page, whether they can index them or not, but that's for another video. So you can have up to about, I believe the number is still 50,000 URLs in a sitemap. And that's more than most websites are going to require. So that you're going to be able to fit your entire URL list inside here. And it has a specific structure, a specific markup that you can see here that it needs to include, right? So you need to include the list of URLs, modification date, location, and more here. So what I will do though is provide some links into understanding this, into creating this. Generating one of these, if you don't have one for your website, is an extremely simple thing to do for pretty much most devs, and definitely anybody who should be able to do SEO. It's something that is basically what we would call a quick win in terms of maybe if I was to look at a new client and they didn't have this is something that we would look to implement immediately because it's just so easy for us to show then Google all the pages on your site. And obviously, if Google has been crawling and can't find internal links to certain pages on your site, this is going to help them discover them and help you to start to gain those rankings, right? Now, usually, if you're using any form of CMS, so content management systems such as Webflow, WordPress, Squarespace, many others, right? They will do this automatically. They'll generate this for you automatically every time you create and publish a page. Now, that's important to remember if you're using a CMS too. If you've published a page that you don't want people to see, that if it doesn't need to be live, say such a test page, unpublish that thing and potentially put in the 301 redirect, which we'll also go over very soon what those are and how they help. So basically, the reason for a sitemap file is to let Google know what exists, let Google know what pages that you have and what to crawl, and let Google know, I guess, the priority of those pages. This really helps in terms of priority. Every page here will have a some form of priority in terms of how often it is updated, how important that page is to your website. Now, this is usually generated automatically when you generate a website, and it's usually generated by your CMS. So if you have a CMS, you can probably go now to / sitemap.xml for your Squarespace, WordPress, whatever site, and you will probably already see one of these here, and you probably don't have to worry too much about including this now. If you do not, if you've built your stuff custom, or you're not on one of the main big CMSs that I've listed before, then I would suggest that you check this now just to make sure that you do have one in place. And if you do not, and you need one generated, one of your devs should be able to do it, or by all means, reach out to me, or reach out maybe in Growth University here and see if somebody can help you. Robots.txt file. So this is more or less sort of the anti-sitemap in terms that the point of the robots.txt file is to do a few things. Now, one of the things it's going to do is tell Google where the sitemap is, because sometimes the sitemap can be not necessarily under / sitemap.xml if it's a custom built site. So that helps Google to find that. The other thing, the main important thing that robots is going to do is it's going to tell Google what sections of your site, or tell any crawler really, but Google being the most common one, what it can and can't look at, essentially. So these are like directives. Google can particularly ignore that. Pretty much all crawlers can decide to ignore this. But if you're a tech giant like Google or Bing or whatever, you're going to not waste resources where you don't have to, right? So think about Google's crawling maybe, 1 million, billion, whatever websites per day and checking for content updates, checking for links, seeing what's going on. If you've got a robots.txt file in place, maybe you haven't launched and you've set the website up and you've published all your pages, but you don't want it to be crawled and indexed yet. robots.txt file is a place where you would define a user agent. So a user agent being, someone who does the crawling, such as Googlebot, which is Google's web crawler. And you would be saying, hey, the user agent, such as Googlebot, disallow, and you could say disallow specific sections of my website, such as thank you pages, maybe, or resource pages where you have published not a PDF or a webinar that you're trying to gain emails for, so a content offer. You might not want Google to crawl and index those pages. So you would say, don't crawl this page by saying disallow / and then you would put the specific URL, so the /. So you would eliminate you can see here, you've got a couple of examples. You would eliminate your actual URL, say in this example, USA Today, and you would put / whatever is after the first /. Eliminate this. You would eliminate that in the original part, and you would say, hey, don't look at this page, or don't look at this group of pages, so that you could keep those things hidden from Google's index, and stop people from, say, bypassing your your directives, bypassing your email, having to give you an email address and being able to get all that stuff for free. Now, because it's important that you're able to gain those email addresses and be able to grow yourself that way. So you can see here, this is an example of a robot.txt from USA Today. And you can see that the user agent is Googlebot News. So that's Google's specific news crawler. And we're saying, and USA Today is saying disallow, as in we disallow you from crawling story / sponsor - story. So don't crawl the sponsor stories. Don't crawl our picture gallery for sponsor stories. Don't crawl our videos for those. Don't crawl the videos embed at the bottom there, all those things, right? So that's a specific user agent that they've said, we don't want you to see this. The other thing, the next thing you see underneath robots, they've already specified here, user agent star. Now, user agent star is a definition for basically anybody. So any web crawler, we're saying you're not allowed, or we don't want to allow you. We're basically giving you directly, please don't. Essentially, don't crawl our errors, don't look at our interactive, don't look at all these other sections of the website and place them in your crawls on whatever. We don't want you to do that. So it can be ignored by specific people or bad actors. In that case, it's not a get around for security measures in any form, but is a get around, I guess, in terms of making sure that you're not wasting Google's resources in crawling your site, because they will crawl a limited number of pages, depending on how important and updated your site is normally. And you're also sort of saying like, hey, we don't want these to be findable by other people. So robots.txt is super important. As a minimum, you should definitely have a sitemap and a robots.txt on your website, even if you've done no other SEO right now, because you want to say, hey, what we want Google to crawl is this, what we don't want them to crawl is that. And that's sufficient. Now, again, I'll leave some links in this to better explain how to generate a robots.txt. Potentially, it's a video I could do in future, and maybe request that of Growth You or myself directly, and we could work together on making that happen for you guys. But it's essential. This is pretty simple as well. This is going to be another quick win. If you're going to generate a sitemap file, it's pretty simple that you also generate a robots.txt at the same time. Now, .txt, I actually missed that part, is a text file, right? It's created in Notepad. It's extremely simple. They're usually extremely small files, and it's just the anti-sitemap. Sitemap is every page we want you to, every page, more or less. And the robots.txt file is, hey, these are the pages we don't want you to crawl. Moving on. So again, I guess a recap of what I've just said, a sitemap tells Google what pages exist on your site and their relative importance. And a robots.txt file is used to tell which sections or specific pages at times of your site that it can and cannot access and index. So basically, if it's not included in the robots file, then it will be default considered that it's allowed to access it. If it is included as a disallow, it's going to not. You can specify allow, I believe, in your robots.txt file, but it's something that's so not common and unnecessary for most sites that I wouldn't recommend even getting bogged into it. So create a sitemap, create a robots.txt file. You can probably get both these done in less than an hour for most websites, probably in less than 20 minutes for most websites. Super easy win for you. I recommend you checking that both these exist. A robots.txt file will usually be at /robots.txt for most websites. So check that you have one. And if not, then reach out to have one of them generated for you, or ask someone internally, your devs or someone, to get that done. Now let's jump back into a full recap on all the structure and all that, because I think this is going to be the end here before we go into technical fixes. It is. So important points. A clear structure is super important to Google, super important to users. Your hierarchy of how pages are set out is set out very similar to how you set them out on your own Windows computer or Mac computer or whatever. A main folder is, say your folder is website, and every / is a subsequent folder to enter, right? So if you go into / features, you should have a number of documents in the features subfolder, which would be your features pages. That's how servers see these things. That's how your servers actually see this, right? Generally. And then you have your blogs and / blog, and that's its own subfolder. And underneath / blog, you have particular documents, which are all your blog posts. That structure, that hierarchy is important. Make sure you do that. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people have this SEO advice that all your blogs should be / whatever the blog name is, because you don't want to put them under a subfolder. Personally, I completely disagree. It's not something that will make a huge difference to you for the most part. Having a blog subfolder is completely fine. What you do want to do also is think of that at scale sometimes too, in that if you're going to post over the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever, you're going to be posting multiple blog posts. Eventually, you're going to want to crawl and find all your blog posts. And if they're all under / blog, it's extremely easy to identify where they're at for future SEO actions, for future content reorganization, all those sorts of things. If it's not, and they're all on the top level, it's extremely difficult to identify and move all those in the long term. So I recommend making sure your site structure is making sense. For most of you, that's homepage, that's / blog, that's all your features are website / whatever the feature is, no problem there. And that's it. A sitemap and a robots.txt file are essential. Sitemaps help Google find all your pages, and a robots file will tell Google not to crawl your pages, like gated pages or resources that you don't want people to access to, or you want Google particularly sometimes to access. All of your landing pages, I guess I implied this previously, but I didn't say it explicitly. All of your landing pages should be supported by your blog post if you want to rank that landing page, right? So if it's / whatever your service is, whatever your feature is, it's likely that you've already matched a keyword to that particular page, and you should be supporting them with blog posts. And internal linking between those blog posts and the landing pages is extremely important. It's something that you should do over time. If you haven't done this to date, you've got all these blog posts and you're out linking back, go through them and start doing it, and just do it methodically. You don't have to do it all in one day. You can go and do 2 today, do 2 tomorrow, do 2 the next day. And what you'll probably find is you might rewrite some of that content. You probably might improve some of it. You've learned a bit here, maybe that you might also apply there as well. That's it for structure and hierarchy. I'm going to leave that there. I think we will make the next section a separate video. So I look forward to seeing you in that next video.